left it at home. So I try to keep track of who, if you read something by someone else, that I at least make it spell the name right, attribute it. So I'll like that she read something. William Barron. All right. So let me get the first 5 to follow. We have Buford, then John, then Owen, then Karen, then Nancy, and Stephanie, then Clara back on the open. So Buford, come on up here. Give him a nice round, please. Anyone going to raise that for you?
I don't know.
As long as you're happy.
Yeah, that's not it. Right here. I always like Mr. Natural would say, oh, the mic's too low for you, because I don't think of myself as particularly tall. But he has some short, very talented people who play their music. This is called Beautiful, Sensitive, Tough. Beautiful, sensitive, but tough. You abused, young, abused, here past middle age, men not fair, and that's putting it mildly. I got my friend back, you exclaimed gleefully, when I accepted the platonic nature of our bond. Except that it's really still a lot more platonic for you. I tell myself maybe the friendship will never end like lovers almost always do. My consolation for having to continue to look for other women probably not as good as you. This one I'm going way back when I was a baseball player as a teenager. This is called I Took My Time. Looking in at the catcher's mitt thinking, if I throw on the outside corner, he won't hit it. Wrong. Again and again. I think the problem was I couldn't quite throw a baseball hard enough. It didn't have quite enough control about where it was going. The best moments really were the times of anticipation, just before I was called into a game by the manager. And when he called on me, my heart beating that staccato moment, my hand on the red dirt of the mound when I got out there, rubbing it into the horsehide, throwing the fastball, then the curve, my primary pitch. Put your money on me, I'd say, by taking the mound. Bob, my manager, perking up my ears just before we warm up, Buford. Then I went and put all my energy, the team's energy, the money of the moment on me. Bam! The ball was smacked, or it smacked the mitt as the batter swung and missed, or watched the ball go by.
Buford Button, ladies and gentlemen. John?
Yeah, that's me. I forget what I scribbled. I probably
recognize the roads.
I probably wrote in Chinese.
Wrote something. I thought it looks like Baruch. But Baruch Atad Adonai.
The Budapest. Here, let's see. I gotta find something here. It shouldn't take me too long. Claire and I just did the TV show, so I'm going to read the poem that I read at the TV show. I've read it twice so far. I liked it, so I might as well read it again. I'm going to have a table where I'm going to be selling my pottery and other things. I'll probably be selling my books too at the UN Plaza. It's going to be every first Friday of the month from 5 till 9. They gave out 10 tents, practically free, for artists related to the Tenderloin. I don't actually live there, but I work in a Tenderloin art studio. and so I got that deal, and it's really neat to go down there on a Friday night. So you might try going by there. You'll probably see.
UN Plaza? You said?
UN Plaza, yeah. Let's see. I'm not thinking here. Let's see. Click is what I gotta do. Shouldn't be too long. Connection a little slow.
Which can you say the date of the UN Plaza?
Oh, this time it's June 5th. So,
First Friday of the month.
yeah.
5 to 9.
Yeah,
5 to 9.
yeah. Let's see. Almost there.
It's all right.
Okay.
I stopped the clock.
Okay. Literally?
Well, yeah, because, you know, otherwise the beeper might go off and.
I can see you, you're coming closer, and closer.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, it's a short one, so I am getting closer.
I see you closer.
I'll just read this one. I can't find the other one. This one is in the, it's just below this one. I remember. Here it is.
There we go.
Okay, this is called The Ghost of Kennard. Kennard is a made-up story, and I was thinking about my dad when he was going through fits, trying to decide whether he was going to take us on the passenger liner, the Connard lines, C-U-N instead of C-A-N, and so it's a sort of a play on words. So this is the poem, The Ghost of Connard, or an Unfounded Story. Connard is the place I dwell, since it is in basis that I am an idle rumor. Here in this subdivide there is nothing to tell. I am the twin of the kin who drinks all my gin. Bloody English is he, I hate him dearly, but I hate the captain of the Kennard, who can't sail back home to his void, where the truth always evades. He looks at me with the look of hapless emptiness. I can tell he really is waiting to get all the women in gold from those who have it but don't want it. Such are those who marginalize. The only person I feel at one with is the Judas who put me here. She put half and half in my coffee. The others just take more than their share. They want to make of evasion a new truth and fair. I don't mind stereotypes, but please no more hyperbolic curves. Those are Moorish invaders. They no longer wear cloaks. They just hide on Hyde Street, DNA exposed. They distribute leaflets of hopelessness. Please don't just open that box and put me back in, because next time it might be that I turn into Pandora, or perhaps I will escape to sail to the stars to tell them all of the void, and how even the kidnapper twisted his face at the void. Thank you.
Every time I look for videos for upcoming features, I can almost always find the people on his podcast TV, so that's something to keep track of over time. It's really always well done. There's like hundreds and hundreds of posts. Well, yeah, both of you. I mean, but the thing is, like, I go, there's one. Yeah, it's there. So it's really great. All right, so we have Owen Dunkel coming up next. Give a nice round. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I can.
To Johanna Wedgwood, priestess of wisdom and love. Light fingers, the tree branches, the sorceress, goddess, stewardess, mystic of the air fingers bejeweled, the wood nymph, the forever orange shafts, fire sun going down, no whistling wind, the moon full and warm as the great heart of peace. New tides. Sunset recent orange crowds the metropolis that does so fervently throb like a strange ghost. Red blood we do not see, not love but accept our due. Shafts of eventide longing through a strange fate. Only the emptiness but are welcome. Loud and clear is the strange vision of the seagulls, hawking love to a dark sea. A lazy sea set the moon awash of the haunting replies of the tides and kelp of the past callings again. Land away, the boats cry to their stash imaginings there, a bold stroke there. Crash, the day's beautiful and naive stand to quiet ways and cautious, grand as the roaring waves' turgid gash of leftover winter. We are still running quietly inside to avoid vast vats of joy that fill our minds with fun, not the void of plenty and indifference we share, our sprawling roisterings care. A quiet day of cliches at cliche, the library beckons. Passive at first when I leave the walls, moan to a sky of love and ecstasy. Late berries of the wonderful spring sun carries pollen of sneezing, the why I ask not, but duty to buy. Think of oneself and one's fellows. Weary apostles go about, thinking not of themselves, but of their fellow men and fellow sufferers. Birds above it all, lucky them. Then men have brains, broad ego, to pick 'em up, set 'em down. A gazebo. Pure sun. I walk on Turk Street, right in the midst of the Tenderloin. My psyche rears like a nervous pinto. Nothing here but the continuing heat and traffic. Lost, oh son of the sun and the peace and less than desperate straits I find in the still calm plates of more than reason and the keys of mercy. We are still fumbling, reap the rewards of silence and creation. Gates open like our mouths agape, skates, rock and roll. Greasers rule, I write in my notebook, but ivy is planted in the mind. The vine grows much more like the run and care of the patient midday wine of sun and flowers and delicious ennui. We treasure like the beret of old Henri. Lights say, being now in the world is mine. At dawn, mine the clouds make, lying in lordly rest. Shroud silent in the ash calm of no crime, of utterances of no good. Time ahead of all others and honors. Loud cries to the wonderful sun. Proud courtesans, sudden bells. A dime on the ground should be enough to flirt to their fans of coquetry and love of the right gallant. Through all flesh and sound. Land awash to the sky and graveyard. Year after year we are broke. Beer. Lance. The sun of the right anger stays on to the night of confusion and down as the clouds cool the day of hard loyalty. Huzzah to the days ahead, to the straight line of determined conquest of contentment, and the thin red line, faith and karma. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all. Going down, and now, Karen Huff will be coming up here. We have good to see her again. Give her a nice warm welcome. A professional. Do you want to be part of the meeting? Think about it. Not giving people. Oh, you want some help with that? It gets weird.
No.
I think you do need help, it's gonna fall.
It's gonna get.
Like the last one.
Because the thing that's holding it in place is not the regular button. I had to
okay.
pop it in with
Then red.
Okay.
Okay, here, let me just do this here. This is,
Slam it.
well,
The floor touches this part.
there you go.
Don't hold on.
Okay.
Don't hold on.
Hands off the fence.
Oh, wait a minute,
Go.
Now power's back on.
The only excuse I have for life is it seemed like a good idea at the time.
See, you screwed it up again.
Oh, no! It's
I
good.
know,
Sorry.
that's not the regular holder, I don't know where the regular
Okay.
holder is, so. Unless it was in the drawer.
So this goes back a while. It's called Coney. The gypsy dancers who wanton way across the midway. Behind the tent where Barker touts illusion shows. Reptilina, the alligator girl, and later the wild woman from Borneo. The gypsy throws the cards, laughs at the king of hearts, as though he could ever begin to dance the tarantella with her, let alone keep her captive in some damn castle, where women need reassurance of desirability and think happy ever after is attainable. The gypsy reads tarot and palms for the mugs, tells them what the odor of their sweat reveals they most long to hear, vaults onto a painted giraffe as the Jenny spins, and hops off the other side, wheedles a stuffed kangaroo from the dish pitch guy to keep her warm when the season ends. Playing with fairy tales again. Once upon a time. What does it mean when our daughter is more interested in conversing with a dragon than with any eligible prince from the 17 kingdoms? The girl acts as though she was raised by wolves. She was, my dear, remember? You had her cast out upon the hillside for not being a suitable heir due to her inferior gender. It was only last summer she returned, bearing wild fruits from the forest when your people were starving. The turning of the wheel is time enough to adjust to the role assigned to her. By the very gods, she will choose her consort well, and soon, or to the tower be consigned. Your fine grey stallion vanished, sire. Your daughter, and the emerald crown as well. Some say she was seen in company of that rogue from the Shadowlands. As his galleon cleared the headlands, the girl, rain-drenched, laughing at the helm. And this one's for Jim. It's called Beachcombing at Night. We speak the language of the sea, silently diving through that unspeakable force that drives the tides and pulls saltwater currents of blood through your strong and steady heart, washing half-remembered dreams up on the sand, where they glitter in moonlight, but return laughing with the outgoing waves, before you can scoop them up or give close examination, no matter how fast you scurry.
Nice. Fair enough. All right. Let me just read the next 5 so people know where they are and who they are. I can know what I'm doing here. So we have Nancy, then Stephanie, then Clara coming back, then Philip, then myself. Nancy, I'm a hero, correct?
Yes.
She is coming on up here. Woohoo! Ooh, a little thing for the table. Good. 10,000 maniacs.
Oh, I remember that.
All right.
Oh.
I wonder if I get, am I close enough for stuff?
I can turn it up a little bit.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Hello?
It probably just should be pointed up to your mouth a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah. Go ahead, let's see if that works.
The first poem I wanted to read tonight is not my own. It is by Joseph Brodsky.
Oh.
I'll give you the spelling later. It's called May 24, 1980. This is for a friend of mine, Matt, who's turning 50 next week. I have braved for want of wild beasts, steel cages, carved my term and nickname on bunks and rafters, lived by the sea, flashed aces in an oasis, dined with the devil knows whom in tales on truffles. From the height of a glacier I beheld half a world, the earthly width. Twice have drowned, thrice let knives rake my nitty-gritty. Quit the country that bore me and nursed me. Those who forgot me would make a city. I have waded the steps that saw yelling Huns in saddles, worn the clothes nowadays back in fashion in every quarter, planted rye, tarred the roofs of pigsties and stables, guzzled everything save dry water. I've admitted the century's third eye into my wet and foul dreams, munched the bread of exile, it's stale and warty. Granted my lungs all sounds except the howl, switched to a whisper. Now I'm 40. What should I say about my life? That it's long and abhors transparence? Broken eggs make me grieve. The omelet makes me want to vomit. Yet until brown clay has been rammed down my larynx, only gratitude will be gushing from it. This is my own. It's called Winter Night. It's too late to be out. It's too warm for this winter night. It's too dry for an El Nino year. And it's too quiet for St. Patty's Day. It's too far to walk to the beach, and it's too soon to leave you. It's perfect, though, the way you say my name and make all worry disappear. And this is my last one. It's called An Urge to Murder. I can't say I never had the urge to take another's life. I have felt a hatred so intense that something snapped inside me. I threw myself against another person in a murderous rage, so viciously I tore off one of my own fingernails, clawing at his denim-covered arms. Had I been able, I would have torn out his eyes, his tongue, wrapped my arms around his neck and twisted his head off like a bottle cap. But I was 5 years old, and he was in his 30s. He had just shot and killed my dog, Rebel, incorrectly assuming my well-trained Labrador would kill a farmer's chicken. I'm now in my 50s, much more the pacifist. But if I ran into that denim-coated man today, he should still fear me.
Thank you, my hero. Thank you. Welcome back. Stephanie Manning is next. Then we have Clara Sue coming back before Philip, myself, Richard, Justice, and our feature of the evening. Then we'll take a break and do one thing.
So I was really proud of myself for remembering my glasses.
Woo!
That's not my poetry.
I got mine.
So, never be proud, because pride kills, I guess. So I have a Julie Vinograd book where she wears the button weird and proud. I like that button. And it has all the pictures of Chris Trian in here, which are really special. And I miss Chris and Deirdre very much.
They said they were intending to come back at some point.
Chris and Deirdre, are you watching on the computer? Get yourselves to Colin Hayes next Wednesday. Okay, so here's one Julia's called Eating the World. When I was a child, I put everything in my mouth. I wanted to eat the sun and moon, which weren't too far away, stuck in the branches of the orange tree. And I also wanted to eat the oranges. I wanted to eat my grandfather's round gold pocket watch and see what time tasted like. I wanted to eat curved white magnolia petals that looked like inside-out breasts. I wanted to eat the shiny pink conch shell on our living room shelf.
and I wanted to eat the sea inside it. Our cat looked out the window and wanted to eat birds. I looked out the window and wanted to eat air that made birds fly. If I swallowed enough air, I knew I could fly. I wanted to eat river-rounded stones cold under my tongue. They were memories of cities I had a right to know. I wanted to swallow fire like a circus performer long before I went to a circus, and twice as much because I was forbidden to touch. Forbidden love and my open mouth. When I was a child, I wanted to eat the whole world. Then I got older, and the world started eating me. And then here's one called Poetry. A guy at the cafe said poetry didn't work anymore because nothing worked anymore. I agreed that nothing worked, but poetry isn't part of nothing. It never was. Poetry isn't a lever you pull for a candy bar or a lotto number. Poetry isn't a button, not even the sweet buttons on people's bodies. Poetry hovers over a blank page, a breath caught in forever. Not to work, not even to play. Poetry is a weed growing wild inside us, a weed of want and dream, ignoring the growl of blind lawnmowers. Poetry pulls elephants' noses, and that's how they got so long. Poetry stubs its toes on stars and goes, ouch, 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 ouch. Poetry brushes its teeth with televisions and gargles with glory. Poetry spills from our lips in shining spirals like a child's slinky going downstairs. Poetry eats breakfast cereal of graves, coughs up coffins, and butters headstones like toast with plenty of honey. Poetry takes notes under lovers' beds, guessing at moans and sweet sounds nobody knows how to spell. Nothing is ever enough. Poetry pours more salt into the sea. At street corners where traffic lights command stop or walk, poetry flashes by, blowing wind through our wing feathers, the wings we don't have. Paper wings.
So just when she said I wanted the poem about eating the world, it reminded me of this story I read about 10 or 15 years ago about a guy who managed to eat a Cadillac.
No, what?
And the way he ate the Cadillac was grinding most of it down into really teeny tiny pieces and sprinkling on everything he ate. And it took him 3 years. So
Is this fiction or
no,
not?
this is a true story because he got in all kinds of trouble. Oh yeah. So just don't eat your Cadillac.
Lead poisoning.
Clara Sue is now.
Yeah,
She's coming up.
okay.
Back to the
Yeah.
when you do the keynote, you're eligible also for
I just have a short poem.
the short poem.
Yes. I was in Palmyra, Syria, in 2004, and we met a Bedouin on the edge of the ruins. And he invited us to dinner. So when I saw the picture of the destruction of that part, well, most of Syria, it's very, very sad for me. But this poem I wrote after I came back in 2004. The Bedouin of Palmyra, for Musa. It was from touching your thick, calloused hand I became aware, the sun that I merely looked upon as day sculpted your drought-inflicted skin. You examined my palm, gently squeezed each finger to comprehend my delicacy, a consequence from the sheltering sky. In the olive and palm tree grove, where the guttural gurgle of camels lingered in the night breeze, an obscured brook languishes with an occasional shuffle among the leaves. You observed the pregnancy of the predictable moon while I filled my mouth with sugary dates. Maybe rain will make you restless. Come now, you said. I will never go beyond the desert.
Ancient stones are my chronicle. Sand washes me clean. I feed on earth's nectar, dreamless under the bedouin sky. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I always fear asking this. We have Philip Zimmerman. Were you here? Have you been here before?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I was going to give you the usual treatment for the new person, but I thought you had been here before.
You gave me that last time.
Okay. All right, we'll give him a nice round of applause. Allow me to raise this in honor of your esteemed height. Is this good? That's good. All right, that way.
Okay, thank you. I was born on Memorial Day.
Oh,
And,
Happy birthday.
Happy
Thank
birthday.
you.
So you're like 32, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, the real Memorial Day?
I was born on the real Memorial Day. And so a lot of what I write about is, the awareness of people that have passed. And so it's been that way my whole life, obviously. So tonight, because it's kind of the week of my birthday, these are photographs of a young man who was from my town, and this is his grave. And I go and visit his grave and photograph it every time I'm there. And
Where is it?
this is in Madras, Oregon.
Okay.
It's a town of 2,500 people. And he was abducted in Mahmoudiya, Iraq, in June of 2006. And then he was found a few days later. So, anyway, his name was Thomas Lowell Tucker, and I wrote 3 poems for him. And so I'll read tonight for you. For Thomas L. Tucker, his destiny that day, vectored in malice and forethought, as veiled hearts in ambush lay. In a field near Mahmoudiya, they found him and spirited him away, and drew him into Slaughter's house, that dismal house. Thomas Lowell Tucker 2, July 12th, 2006. I saw your body today, a cheap sneakered foot standing on your bloody face, and then the beak black, the size and shape of your head. Although the camera was tilted down the plane of the street oblique, the mess that was your body became a bright horizon. Your pant leg torn, hinting even darker violations. Blood-stained shoulders heave and ache deep in the marrow, more bitter than poison. Thomas Lowell Tucker 3. Even dreams and illegal teacups misread your fortunate birth. Fortune at. Now peace as cold as the stare of Al-Qaeda settles on your grave. A massive, foggy elephant named Hero. No one even dare contest it. Flags flank this weight, eternally riffling, night and day, seen and unseen, like your mother's tears. A strong young man walks a dog. The president is too busy to think of you. Your father and mother and sister and I carry this weight daily, hourly. We are all cold to your compression. Larks in the fields below. The energy at sundown, like some vortex, ripens the stillness, weirdly rising from the ground. Larks in the fields below, singing night and day. Thank you.
So Dan
making a promise that I would not read or listen to the news, I made a mistake and read or listened to the news. So,
Did you come across anything significant?
well, yes, the poorly known country of Macedonia just decided to free itself from potential attack by individuals claiming to be revolutionaries who actually had money from the United States and connections with our ambassador to that country. And well, they didn't get very far because they were found out before they could actually bring in the tanks. Interesting. So I think, okay, that's fine.
Just like Haiti.
Yeah, it's like, you know, someone was going to make a lot of money. Anyway, so
with that in mind, I'm going to read these two pieces, which I read together before, and some said, that's a nice pair because they're thousands of years apart. So I'm going to start with the low note and go to the high note. And people like that. And so this is called The Last Day of the Year, which was written on the last day of the year, but a couple years back. This last day of the year, I'll tell of 9/11 once more, a date that is a number. So we shall do the math. But since many people are logic challenged and math deficient, for example, many I know can't even balance a checkbook if they have one, while others will never be held to account, I'll begin simply with 2 plus 3. And you think, hey, that's simple enough, that's 5. But there's a principle involved here, in more ways than one, believe me. But I'll leave that to others for later so I can get back to the numbers. The principle is that an even number, any even number, added to an odd one, again, any odd number, will sum up to an odd number. For the simple-minded, even plus odd equals odd. And 9/11 was an odd one out, to say the least. But we gotta go to ground zero. Where those towers burned, gulls now fly, smiling, unconcerned. Now, each tower was a rectangular prism. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to leave anybody behind, no child left behind. This means that it had 4 sides, an even number of sides. Rectangular prisms always had even numbers of sides. And any rectangle can be divided into halves with one line into exact matching halves, 2 ways. Such a dividing line is called a line of symmetry. Each tower had many lines of symmetry, many, many lines, and the towers were perfectly balanced. So when the planes impacted them, certainly a singular event, it was in a sense odd. Because the towers were hit off-center, the damage had to recreate an imbalance, like you're subtracting an odd number. Because symmetry was compromised, so to speak, one would expect the towers to respond in kind, that is to say, unevenly, oddly, because the off-center, aka odd, unbalancing input of the planes created a weakness on the damaged sides, unbalancing the system, and then being unbalanced, the collapse should have been asymmetrical. Instead, the towers collapsed symmetrically, as if the damage had been perfectly centered. But we know that it wasn't so. The planes hit off center to the side, remember? So something else had to compensate for the plane's odd input, to rebalance the equation, so to speak. But as to what that was, as I said, I'll leave it to others. Suffice it to say that the collapse of the towers, if the story given to the public is to be believed, the whole world witnessed a singularity, unique in all time and space, where an even number, a symmetrical structure, was giving an odd input, the planes, and yet we got an even result. Truly odd. Now, they say molten steel was cooling in the deepest basements of the center for weeks after. Why would there be molten metal in the basement? What would cause it to melt? No explanation was ever offered. Would that be the evidence of another singularity, possibly a balancing event? They say also that at least $500 million in gold bullion disappeared on that day, never to be found. And one wonders why, what with all the searching and sorting so dutifully reported and viewed on the news, which found rings and wallets and ID cards, but they missed all that gold. They say that the Enron case records were destroyed along with Building 7. I wonder if that was part of the cleanup crew's job. Then there was the changing of the management and all the security guards in the weeks and months before the surprise event. I think that's interesting. Who knows the answers to all these painful questions, or where they'll take us, or to whom and why? As I said, there's a principle involved here in more ways than one, but I will leave that up to you because now it's your call, your choice, your future, maybe even still your nation. And if you don't make of it what you will, then you leave it to others. And if that does not make you happy, then you must decide what it's worth. Because now you know, and now even you can do the math and determine the sum of its reasoning. That's just a small part of the puzzle. I love that story. And now we go back a few thousand years. I used to call this Western history in a nutshell, but it's called Fair Helen. Aeolian stars, soft night air, Aegean beauty ever fair, dancing through the hall in her prime, sweet Helen loses no grace with time. Millennium's girl, it's true, I still fashion a blush on you, your sweet glances caught shimmering while lyre and muse set singing. Ardent whispers given and caught, while no one knew what would be wrought. Sweet Helen's constellate beauty became their clarion for duty. They set sail for Ilium bound and brought its battlements to ground. Fervent love returned at last, forgiven all for what was past. And when, in time, your guise gave way, the vigil was kept night and day. Men stayed on, stood close at hand, guarding the treasure of their land. Then, when your blink was slowly missed, a maiden's hand touched at your wrist. But here, now, though ages have passed, your beauty continues to last. What is the mystery we have here? Why should this tale be so dear? Could it simply somehow be a story worth eternity? Or do we now lack their sense? Does it chide our indifference? Dear sweet Helen, I give you this, my respect in a lover's kiss. Thank you.
So a little bit of current news, old news, and now I hope they have laid the ground for the next magician to come up to the mic, Mr. Richard Sandro, a well-known local bon vivant, and what do they call it? Raconteur. No, maybe not raconteur. Yeah, exactly. Give him a nice round of applause as he comes up here bravely.
Well, I got to get my theatrical voice out here. I hope it's going to hold up. Well, this is one I think I read last week, but in light of going to a meeting last night, I'm going to read this one tonight. Sacred sites? We got sacred sites. Got sacred sites? We can build. We have legal problems? We are USA. We can fix all your problems. Problems you didn't even know you had? We are USA. Say you found some Indian artifacts and you don't know, you want to get on with your building project, we have experts who can help you with that. If nothing else, they can confuse the issue so no one knows whether they're coming or going. Are there any Indians really left? Oh, I digress. All legal problems, such as if it's illegal, well, we can get a law passed to make it legal. And we can do the other way around. This is the beauty of USA. We are an empire built on law and order. Say you got some trouble with some pesky Indians? No need to fret. We can handle any protest. We just absorb it all. They'll eventually get tired, but we remain. We are USA. Say you got some laws that will mandate you to uphold as an elected official? Well, don't worry. We're USA. We have ways around that. You just ignore it and hope no one catches on, or take the risk of getting sued. But if sued, you don't pay, it's the good old taxpayers. We are USA. Sacred sites? Yeah, we can save your sacred sites by selling your sacred rights to get rid of their sacred sites. We can build. We are USA. Give me my palm oil. Give me my palm oil so I can eat my commodity foods like we gave native people. White flour, sugar, salt, and fat brought them fry bread that some people call Indian arsenic. The food empire adds to these ingredients artificial coloring, flavoring, and palm oil, and they call it chips, crackers, and snacks. Give me my palm oil so I can see the rainforest cut down and burned and destroyed so I can have my palm oil added to my food. Let the peat bogs burn and burn and burn, rising and rising and rising, billowing, making smoke around the world in a blanket of misery. Give me my palm oil so I can help kill the orangutans and all the other flora and fauna that could be developed into healthier lives in places like Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Colombia, Benin, Cameroon, Nigeria, Kenya, just to name a few. Now, there is a profit to be made from the biomass and butter substitutes and antioxidants, so we can improve our health. So let's get to it. Well, I'll leave on a softer note. This is
Are you serious? You're really going to be a softer note?
Yeah.
You said that before.
Well, it's softer.
Okay.
And you've heard this before, as we well know. Sister Moon slips into Morpheus. In flight, Sister Moon slips into Morpheus as she glides across the darkened cobalt blue sky. Below, lights from the Mother reflect the twinkles of stars. The Milky Way slashes across the domed sky as the universe with all its stars are the backdrop. On the ground, away from city lights, looking at the domed sky, falling rocks burn as things flow from east to west. People know they're their place in the bubbled universe. Flora and fauna talk to each other in the night, looking for love and food under the vaulted sky. In the cities, people rush around, looking for love and food under the same arched roof. Above, the most they see is the moon, planets, and Orion, and Sirius, the largest of stars. City people believe that they are the center of the universe and are unaware of their position in the real universe. Most seldom never touch the earth unless it's in a city park. Most seldom never touch the earth unless it's in a city park, I said that. They have no real relationship with the flora and fauna. City people, know your place.
Now, Justice coming on up.
Tips for the Perfect Reading by Taylor Mali. Do you all know who he is? He's a performance poet that's hit on the international level, former school teacher who had some really important things to say about how teachers are underpaid and turned it into performance poetry. He's on the internet. His last name is spelled M-A-L-I, and he's beyond fierce. He's inspiring, and you gotta check him out. So he has some valid things to say and gives us permission to do the little things we do sometimes. The extent of the advice given to poets for how to present their work aloud at poetry readings usually boils down to reading slower, louder, and clearer. And while there are important improvements to almost anyone's style of recitation, there are several other factors to keep in mind if you want your audience to appreciate your skill as a writer and perhaps even buy your book after the reading. 1, try to make the first thing out of your mouth poetry. What else could be more important than immediately giving the audience an example of what they came to the reading to hear? 2, know what poems you will read and have them close at hand. Don't burden the audience with having to watch you flip through your own book or resort to looking at the table of contents while you make a self-deprecating joke, only to realize finally that the poem you wanted to read is actually in your other book. Everybody's done it, right? Have your poems picked out in advance, as well as in the order in which you will read them. All of your fussing between poems counts toward the time you have been given to read. 3. Don't be the poet who reads forever. Time limits do not only apply to bad poets, they apply to brilliant poets like you as well. Unfortunately, it's usually the bad poets who have no concept of time. Before the reading, rehearse your set with a stopwatch if possible, and do not go over the time you've been allotted. Losing track of how long you've been reading is no excuse for going over. Don't ask the organizer to give you a signal when you have 5 minutes left, or periodically look up and ask, "How am I doing on time?" I thought that was cool. I didn't know that. It's your responsibility to know how you are doing on time. If anything, be a little under time and leave your audience wanting more. That's a key one right there. Keep your chatter between poems to a minimum. 5. Perform one poem by someone else. Yay. I like that myself. Depending on how much time you have been given, it's a nice idea to celebrate the work of someone else besides yourself. Introduce your audience to one of your favorite poems by one of your favorite poets. Tell them where they can find this particular poem and the 2 things you love about it. Then at the end of your reading of the poem, say the author's name one last time. 6. Perform at least one of your poems from memory. Not me. Once you experience the freedom of being able to make constant eye contact while having your hands completely free to gesture or hang naturally at your sides, which doesn't feel natural at all but looks perfectly normal, you will want to memorize more of your work, and you should. The roots of poetry are bardic, not literary. So it is entirely fitting to work on making the recitation of your poem a better performance. 7, let the audience clap if they want to clap. If one definition of a performance poem is that after it's over, the audience not only wants to applaud, but knows that applause is appropriate, then you could say that the one definition of academic poem is that after it's over, assuming you know when that is, the audience doesn't even know if they're supposed to clap. Poets with limited performance skills will often request the audience not to applaud between poems because they are uncomfortable with the awkward silences that fill the room. In fact, sometimes the only clue that each poet has finished a poem is when they say, "The next poem I'd like to read." Certainly don't telegraph the end of your poem by speeding up or trailing off, or both. Rather build toward it, perhaps nodding your head ever so slightly at the end. 8, we're almost finished. Make eye contact, real eye contact. I used to look at that post. Oh my God, I had you all fooled.
Well, it looks good.
Did it for years. Look at different parts of the room as you glance up from your next text every now and then. Poets who look at the exact same spot as they methodically lift their heads every 7 seconds to pretend that they are looking at the same person, whose chair is apparently attached to one of the light fixtures, aren't fooling anyone. It is better never to look up at all than to do so perfunctorily, to mask your nervousness. 9, if there's a microphone, use it. Granted, when the microphone is attached to a podium, you won't have much choice but to use it. But faced with a solitary mic stand and the possibly awkward task of having to adjust it for your height while somehow also managing a bottle of water and the text from which you are about to read, you might decide you don't need a microphone at all. Not a good decision, even if you have a big, boomy voice. Without a microphone, you cannot get quiet when the poem invites it. Boy, have I made that mistake. Or else no one will hear you when you do. Unless the system sounds like crap and has for the whole night, use the microphone, even if it takes a few extra seconds at the outset to adjust it. 10, the last one. Yay, drum roll. Enjoy yourself. This seems obvious, but audiences love to see people who love what they do, especially when they do it well. Smile a lot. Try reciting an entire poem while smiling. Let people suspect you are having the time of your life. And whatever you do, don't ever suggest that your reading is a kind of torture you are inflicting on the audience. Don't worry, you only have to listen to 3 now. You are a genius, and your words are the proof. Knock 'em dead.
Wow. So that was a good, worthy advisement.
Don't worry about it.
Worthy advisements.
Good.
All right. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to raise this up. Because this is actually, I always say this is my favorite part of the show. I call it a show. It's not a show, it's a presentation. Kim Shuck is our feature of the evening. And she was recommended by a friend, and I looked online and I saw some really great poems, and she came here, what was it last week? Or the week
I've
before?
come a couple of times, but I think it was the week before last.
Yeah.
Couple weeks back.
And, you know, the voice, the message, the way she uses language, it all comes together. It really all comes together. And like I can say that about a lot of poets, but it really applies to her in a unique way. And I'm sure you will agree with me in like 2 or 3 minutes, because she's like, wow, he was right. I like this. So, a wonderful person. Courageous, helpful, kind. Don't get on her bad side. Because if you're there, you're probably going to be wrong. So, anyway.
Give her a good hand for I got to make sure it's right, because otherwise I could be wrong.
No, I'm just saying.
No, I had to do that for me. Is this good for you?
That's good.
Okay. All right.
Too close.
So glad to have you.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you very much. I was pleased to. There are a couple of people I was pleased to see were reading tonight. Really pleased to see you tonight. Really happy you came back, and really happy you're here. And other people who this place introduced me to, and I'm really pleased about that. I am actually going to try to break as many of those rules as I can.
Yes! Bravo! Yay!
See, I was going to say, like, a lot of times they do rule number 11.
So long.
You
don't
were
do
so
any of those if they
patient.
work.
That's a little
It's like you said,
That'll fire you up for sure.
is this a test? Except I can't give up on this one. But before I do, just to put off the poetry for one more moment, Abacha called me earlier, said she was sorry that she couldn't be here tonight, but she's quite ill. And then we called Bill right at the top of the show to see if he was coming, and he'd spaced it. So he's not here. And I think Bill Varnot.
Oh, Bill
And I
Varnot.
believe he's probably the friend who suggested it.
Yes, it could be.
Okay. This is one of Carol Lee Sanchez's poems from The Message.
Yay!
Excerpt from a Mountain Climber's Handbook. It's called Emergence Stories, and I'm reading only one section of it. Great-grandma was Indian, born on the reservation, educated at Carlisle, married to a white man, Scots-Irish from Ohio. Great-grandfather came west with the railroad. He was a surveyor then, but he fell in love with a Pueblo girl and the new wild land he found. So he stayed in the territory and became part of its history. He made a fortune in sheep and cattle and lost it, made another and walked away from it. And from the union of Medatsea, Oak Clan, Laguna Pueblo, and Kenneth Cullen Campbell Gun Clan, Harding County, Ohio, the issue was 7. 4 daughters and 3 sons. Of the Bar 15 ranch, there remains only the record of title once held in Valencia County, giving the usual descriptive dimensions. It also remains in the memory of those who were left, who lived near or were raised there. Grandma was raised on Bar 15. So I read that because as a native woman, I'm clearly not entirely that. My mother's side of the family are Polish, Góral from the hills, where vampires also come from. And my father is Northeastern Oklahoma career military boy, and in about a week I'm going back to Northeastern Oklahoma, and I just remembered why I know who you are, because you met my son and my father at some camp somewhere.
And when I was podcasting.
Right, exactly. You gave him a speech. So I'm going back, and it's under 3 feet of water right now. So I'm hoping somebody finds the bathtub plug before I get out there. I haven't read from this book in a while, but something you said made me think I might want to. Home songs. Always consider the possibility that you take yourself too seriously. That dry cleaners is built on the most sacred spot in 4 counties. It wasn't intended as an act of irreverence. They didn't ask, and we were too embarrassed for them to say. Sure, sometimes I get angry, most often when I can't find any dirty laundry so I can go pray. Just because you don't know the stories doesn't mean there aren't any. It's been 10 years since I was home, but Jake doesn't even look up from the paper as I enter his store. Your Gram's out of flour. You want tea, you gotta buy it. Milk's probably soured. I love you too, old man. Humor and food are the trickiest of cultural artifacts, but those overlaps do occur. My Polish and Chalagi relatives sat down one evening and enjoyed potato pancakes together. And then there was the afternoon of near delirium, 28 elderly Indians listening to Seuss in translation. I actually sulk if no one applauds. You get a better show if you encourage. This one's called Smuggling Cherokee, which is the title of my first book. I unroll my map and a photocopy of the palm of my left hand, way down the corners with a fist-sized chunk of peach-colored flint, a barite rose, some gypsum, and a piece of ruby jack, and then set in to work. There is a certain art to a good mistranslation. I remember the rage and impatient violence, but these days I'm more likely to pile river rocks in the bathtub for a love of smooth things, things as edgeless as I can have them. That man asked me, "Do you speak Cherokee?" But it's all I ever speak. The end goal of several generations of a smuggling project. I slipped the barriers, evaded the border guards. I smile, always. My piece of tissue fell out of this.
That's number 7.
I know. I think I'm doing okay. How am I doing?
You're fine.
At 3 or 4. I'll ask you pretty soon how I'm doing on time. There really are no rules. You know the difference between academic writing and performance writing is how it sits on the page or how it exists in the air.
Yeah.
And that is the only difference. And that is experience of not just me, but years of also being on the board of directors for Cal Poets in the schools. I've heard a lot of people read, and that there, ladies and gentlemen, is the difference. This one's for California. Longer incantations for August. The eldest frog calls the rain with the rhythm she's taught to the mountains for centuries. With intent in her rinsed blackberry eye, she throws everything against this raging summer and sings. Soft midnight fogs and harder warm rains at dawn where the arch fell and scattered rubble into that exact stream. The one that's now just a whisper but sometimes speaks with the sounds that we make too, with sounds that might heal us, and she wants to hear them now, so she sings alongside the giant's rock, where you can barely see some of the stories, but there they are, known to us or not, just there, tapped into the stone, the 7-fingered hand holding them down, holding them gently before the rain that we know will come. Flint-edged summer aside, this is something we know. I'm not actually trying to find the poem, I know where it is. I just trying to think I'm doing good.
Take a note.
Are you? Will you do that, please? Thank you.
How's your eye contact then?
You know, I can't see a bloody thing farther away than this with
Right.
glasses on. There we are. How am I doing?
Beautiful.
Perfect.
I did look right in your eyes with my bleary little glasses a minute ago.
See, now you just broke another one. You're talking.
Oh, I know.
But that
Carol
was
Lee-
sincere, that wasn't idle.
Carol Lee would be really irritated with me about that, because her whole thing was, don't explain the damn poem. This river runs west, and counter to every story I drank deep in those small dull days, strange, heavy with collective unconscious, with all those west-running improbable relations, spending lavish hands worth of emotion on this imagined west, in a city which also runs west, into an ocean I own no stories for, a borrowed ocean full of marvels fed by these long men who collect different water, who polish stones that won't tell me the future in any language that I know. So that poem was written. People, if you're native, you're every kind of native. I think this happens to Asian people too. If you're Asian, you're every kind of Asian. And it's 2 continents, folks. Half of the globe. And every time I go to Britain, people ask me questions about other Indians. And I'm only one kind. And my kind isn't actually from California at all. We're in Ohlone territory here, and I'm Chalagi. So I don't know these rivers, which is, we call them longmen. The translation in Chalagi is longmen. And there's a whole story about how you can tell the future from the rocks. And these rocks don't talk to me. But I'm a guest here, just like everybody else. How am I doing on time? Sorry, I think I have a pretty good idea. The butterfly war. It never ended, this tension, and the Sierras keep burning. Flame pressing tips into each hidden place that Tenaya knew. And as the fires pass, the people scatter grass seed to hold the earth down, to hold it down in the valley. In Mariposa Grove, there's this fire, and it reads the stories of these hills out loud in voices too terrible, too airless for understanding. It takes the trees by the throat and reads them ring by ring into every fingerhold that water has, and the beating of indefinable wings of flame. These winds of burning take non-human prayers to other gods in that smoke, and every bit of hope in history is told and retold in cracked rock and charcoal stands of trees. I always feel a little bit compelled when you are here to read something particularly beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I think that was a compliment.
So that was one, and here comes another. A blanket is meant. Art is territorial, these assemblies of things collected from my world, lifted from yours and reworked until they have a place in mine, no less a statement than the cat face-rubbing scent mark. It might feel good, might flatter you, that purr might please, but don't be fooled, this is about turf, these bloody paw prints I stitch across our shared quilt. Getting a little too old to be cranky every day, but every once in a while. Planua, which is a word you won't have heard unless you speak to. How many Chalagi speakers here tonight?
You got one word.
You know one word. You know more than one word, sweetheart. I'm quite certain I have taught you a few. Planua is a legendary bird with red feathers. It's thought to be a hawk. 5:45, and I wanted to write to you about a red bird and realized you don't know my stories. I knew we were years from sharing the one I needed you to hear. We're misplaced, both of us. Keys in the left pocket of a borrowed jacket, misplaced, but with time we can find our way around to it. Slow work, we do this word by word. Every word is a story, every story is beaded with words, but there's no hurry. It's only 5:45. I'm going to finish with this one. You know what, I always read short, but maybe tonight because I'm trying to break this rule. Fill my time. This one's called I Hear Us Singing. This morning song was for those born to other people's dreams. We were so unlikely. A funny lingering fog, like spies. We know each other in the lines for the bank machines, while buying books or coffee, our eyes clasped and slide with no one the wiser. We sing these morning songs at the sites of piped creeks, sometimes even at the drinking fountain, touch our faces with water and sing. I saw you singing near the art museum, the stone blushing red from new light. We fell into brief duet, anonymous, loving, clandestine. It's hard to know if we were what they'd had in mind, planning all the while for us, not for themselves. It's such a responsibility. Things wash up on the shore. They dig themselves into the edges of river outlets. We can find them there. I hear you singing some mornings. Okay. So there are a few poems here. Some of them reading a little that I wrote after my daughter died. I'm going to read a couple of them. And then if we're all feeling a little too sad, I'll read something funny and strike a pose and leave.
That's a good plan.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
That's my plan.
Okay.
When performing grief before the parasite itself has time to emerge from its initial shell, like candles, because there's something about fire and people will worry if you put the stove burners on and watch them too closely. Wear something soft. Pick music to play on a loop in your head, because if you don't, other things will play and it's better to have some control. Mumble gracious words. Carry lip balm, a mug of tea, a shawl, something with fringe to fuss with, something crush-proof. Mumble gracious words. Tragedy may or may not have something to do with goats, competition with Greeks, actors' masks, but certainly something about the stage. The word keeps sticking in my eyelashes and on my fingers, and people line up to gather what they think they own of the grief, and I pick at newly dry skin under my right eye, and people look to see if I'm doing okay, and I'm not. The shape of change keeps distracting me. The idea of how two abbreviated cells can become a person, and how the empty space of that person makes patterns that twist, that move out so quickly I can't get high enough to see the pattern, and I look up to find supper and car rides to empty places, and a concern which I can also not fill. Anguish, as a word, comes from mental or physical tightness, some kind of constriction. The end isn't the answer, like a handwritten equation that gets smaller until x equals, even it's represented as a set of values between. But I understand why it's easier to think of her like that, as if there are even beginnings or endings and ripples don't go everywhere. I keep finding them in the toes of my shoes, hiding among my beads. I combed a handful of them out of my hair last night before failing to sleep. I'd keep them pressed in a book or a canning jar near the snap beans. It might be right to keep them, but they just keep coming, so I tip them out the window into this orange morning where they can run into whatever places they still have to explore. The milk glass dawn turns to amber, and I slip in and out of laundry, which I have to, shuffle around in projects. There are 100 people who want me to call them in just such moments, and I can't. My mind is so clear nothing snags my attention, and I'm forced to just be here. My life wasn't about you, and you weren't about me, but part of me wants to say something that will sing into a different place and fill it. I want to wrap a part of something I haven't found in softness, something that will cut sound, something that will get very loud somewhere, where everything isn't so damn beautiful. Called Artificial Stone. That snake is back. The one whose scales are stolen from lace-bark pine cones, whose eyes are patchy, brown, and gray. It won't matter how hard I work today, he swallows the good bits, saves them till later, when I don't seem to remember where I was going with them. Or maybe he strips them out of the landmarks, peels the cracks out of the sidewalk, and by being here, by taking his rattle stars from the catalog of Night Story, distorts my map and I can't even find my way home. I said I'd say something funny, so I went to run home and I thought I would go.
How's your time machine gonna
No.
We believe you are fine tomorrow, fine,
I'm
after
fine.
fine, you will be fine.
Thank you. I always catch the old world diseases, and I wish that was just a metaphor because it's a good one, but I actually catch measles every time.
Oh.
I've had it 4 times in the last 2. The last time I nearly bought it. So I suspect one of these days I'm going to catch measles and die of that, and you'll read about it. I'm post-Columbian. Inherit the crackle and residue of mud-handed invaders and measles, which I never developed a resistance to. I've had the shots, but I still catch it each time it enters me. It could have been my blonde grandfather's fault, salt miner that he was. He held a union post during the general strike. It could be a scrap of his code that opens those doors, a conflation of always and never. I was his princess with my glow-in-the-dark baby skin, my soggy hands, even then blue-collar square. Snapping the clip earrings onto his white furred ears. Boorish, a student said of me, complained of stories from my unlikely life. But I am unlikely. Post-Columbian Indian, hillbilly Polish, union agitator and career military DNA, an inheritance from my grandfathers. I was born to take the bullet, take the germ, the weight on my working class shoulders, on my native feet. Thank you so much.
Now, didn't I tell you, as promised, Kim Shaw, give her another round of applause, please. Thank you so much. All right. As is our tradition, we're going to take a little break, about 10 minutes. So, compliment the person over there. Go talk. Did you bring books?
They're books. I thought Bill would do it, and so I'd never bring him out until I know he's not coming.
Okay, so she has books, so talk with her. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. And enjoy yourselves.
That's not a command, it's just an idea.
All those rules make uppity? Yes! Hi. You're welcome. Come back. The hardest rule I learned here took me a couple of years. Tell it, don't explain. By the woman who ran this place for 19 years. Tell it, don't explain. So, if it needs explanation, it ain't ready.
Good to see you.
That was not easy. Man, it took me years for my head might know, but it doesn't mean it ended up on page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
send those emails together.
Show the pictures.
Wow.
This past Memorial Day.
They made it 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, well,
That's all right. That's all right.
So I went.
I'm surprised to see you.
But I know that about you.
You're waiting.
Well,
Took me a second to go, wait a minute.
I don't know how many days have the ceremony, the little schmoozy thing that they do. And then my brother's very
Did you go into your glassware? How did that go?
I mean, I had worked for great many times. But this time I actually went for the ceremony, the whole thing. And I was realizing, you know, if I had been just around on my bicycle,
I've been watching you for 2 years. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Oh, I knew you were saying.
because it was just like,
I haven't seen
like
you
a poem that I read
in a
about
year.
my time, and it was like,
The Christmas party.
I mean,
There we go, right? Wow.
if the country that I thought I lived in would not be happy with the country I'm in.
No, I know.
Yeah, I know.
How are you, Mr. Bionic Man?
I am fine.
You look like you're moving good.
What I think just look nicer. And people will say, does that hurt? Only when people ask me.
But you didn't mow.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I could walk like,
Sometimes I feel like saying.
if I wanted to walk 3 to 5 miles, I could.
Yeah.
Not
Sometimes when, it depends,
like that,
because I
really.
suffer Deborah and.
Now, was it with your brother who was
So it depends on.
Yeah.
growing at the same time or right before
Yeah,
you did?
well, you're in the hospital, we were in different hospitals at pretty much the same time. Him with, he passed away.
Thank you.
That was amyloidosis, I don't know if you know that. It's the side effect of aging. So 40 years later, they were saying, no, it's not, no, it's not, no, it's not. Look at you. Like, okay, so like heart surgeries and
Oh, right.
surgeries and this and that. Yeah, that was like last August, he passed last August. Still getting
And I will be leaving the country,
But it was like,
around July 3rd.
Wow.
And that probably the,
Boy.
Something after another.
I know, it's just like, it feels like this clump of time where